Welcome back. I'm Connie Sokol, your host of Call to Create, and we are so delighted to have an artist today with us. We're so thrilled. Crystal Despain, thank you for being with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me, Connie. I'm excited. Glad to be here.
We are so thrilled. I feel like we have a lot of authors and things like that, and we get to have that spotlight on people who do such incredible, talented work that doesn't always get the spotlight on it. So we want to talk about the process behind that, especially for those who are on that specific creative journey, but also learning the life lessons that we can apply to any creative journey. Mm-hmm. As always, we're going to talk about the official bio, so we're going to jump right in. She is a fine art painter specializing in oil, which is so beautiful. And I love this quote that she has. I'm seeking to find that place where whimsy and life connect. So beautiful. I believe that this is where an artist is both child and master, where art is both a celebration and a silence. Isn't that the truth? This is where the artist has lost nothing in the life of the thing, but has instead given the subject new significance. It's very Little Prince kind of thing. The book, The Little Prince, is how it feels to me. And I love that you take the abilities that you have to make that happen. Crystal has studied with renowned artists Keith Bond, Casey Childs, and Joseph LaRusso, and Dan Wilson. She is heavily influenced by historical masters, Mary Cassatt, William Adolphe Bouguereau, and she is also a winner of many awards, including Segula 2019 Visual Art Contest winner for her painting Visitation, Oil Painters of America's second place in their summer showcase, and was a Select 50 recipient for 2022 International Portrait Competition. This woman has got talent. So let's talk about how you have created that, developed it, and actually come into your own in being able to say, this is what I do. Let's go back to, where did this begin? What led you into art in a more serious way than just the crayons and the whatever? Was that the beginnings, or did some pivotal experience kind of jumpstart that?
Definitely, there was the crayons and everybody's got the little linear watercolor dish, right? So it's a plastic brush that's just horrible, but it's fine. It's fine. So yeah, it's good. It's great. So totally started that way, which, I think most of us probably have those kind of roots anyway. But I think for me, it was kind of little things that really solidified that this is what I wanted to do along the way. There wasn't any big moment where, I just knew this is what I was going to do. In fact, in high school, it was kind of between, I had started taking art classes and I was like, okay, so maybe I could do this seriously, but I really liked to argue. Like, I was pretty good at the teenage thing. So I was like, law school.
That's so natural.
Great idea. So yeah. And then I think I came to myself a little more and was like, all right, so let's probably art. And actually it was between music performance and visual arts. And I kind of decided that I was willing to suffer a little more for the visual arts than for music performance. So
you imagine yourself in a small room doing, the musical practice.
Yeah, it's like it's scales. Maybe I don't like scales that much.
Yeah, as soon as you hit music theory, then it's like, I'm out, right?
Yeah.
I just think that's fabulous that you have that's probably influenced what you've done too, is having those interests in more than just the visual arts and being able to involve other things. So did you find, was it your parents that encouraged you, or you've been able to work with some really stellar people? How did they influence your becoming an artist in just your journey as well as your technique?
Sure. Well, and I think that there were kind of different levels of it too. Like at one point I decided, okay, well, I'm good enough to go to college and do this. And then after college, actually I had 2 kids by the time I finished college. So I was pretty deep into like the baby's mommyhood. I was like so pregnant when I graduated. I was hoping the gown would fit. Luckily, they're really like a 10. It's like, okay, sweet. Anybody can graduate. And then I wasn't super serious about it for a long time. My husband was great. He kept dragging the paint box back out and being like, no, you need to do this. And I kept kind of hiding behind mommyhood a little bit too much. I mean, like, no, I'm busy. I'm good where I am. He's just like, come on. You want to do this. You do. It's like, gosh, yeah, I do. Anyway. And then there was a point where, okay, a little bit of a tangent, but not really a tangent. I kind of had this idea in my head that there were kind of like these anointed people. Like, that person is so successful because they were like a chosen one, right? So it's kind of like sitting there thinking like, well, is there a crown for me or not? Like, am I supposed to do this? And then at some point when I started being really blessed to work with these great artists, and I have to add my newest mentor, her name is Tina Garrett, and she's incredible. She's probably, I don't know. Anyway, I could go on and on and on. But when I started working with these artists, I was like very like kind of starstruck at first, like actual celebrities, whatever. But these people, I was just like, oh my gosh.
Fangirling.
Oh yeah, it was ridiculous. But after I like simmered, calmed down a little bit, I realized that everything that they were teaching was like doable. Like you can learn this stuff. And I also learned that if you kind of just also to just stop forgetting about talent, right? You have it, you don't, who cares, whatever. There's a lot of talented people out there that don't get anywhere because they have no drive. So I started realizing that I got to choose, and I still get to choose like every day, whether or not I work or I don't work, I get to choose, so it's something you just get to do or don't do. And I love that. And I know that there's privilege for sure, and there's luck and all that kind of stuff. But if you're not going after it, and if you're not like hunting down those people that you can reach and learn what they know, that's the way to do it.
Oh, you are spot on. In fact, we were just talking about this the other day about the benefit of just showing up, expressing interest, just pursuing something naturally unlocks those doors, and not all of a sudden in a heartbeat and all in the perfect ways you want, but it's the catalyst, that desire, and then the movement, just acting and showing up, then seeing what happens and what is present and making something out of that. Oh, that's so fantastic. Now, I know as far as for art, my daughter does art, and I did not get blessed with that talent yet, or that it's still in development, right? But I love that she's and another daughter too, they've been finding their style and trying to find the thing that is taking those skills that you talk about, that it's doable, but then putting their fingerprint on it. How did you find your style? I mean, I was thinking about it, like Jackson Pollock, you recognize the painting, it's the drip technique. And
sure.
Mary Cassatt, like I love that painting of baby Charles looking over the shoulder, right? With the orange dress. Like you see that and that's Mary Cassatt. So how did you come to your technique and style?
I have a love-hate relationship with that question. I love to think about that, but at the same time, I think like, I can't say every artist hates it, but I do, in the way that I am never going to be there. Like it's always what I'm doing now. It's always a reflection of where I am right now and what I'm struggling through right now and what I'm thinking about right now. So the paintings that I have done, I don't feel in any way like they're a destination that I've reached. They're just always part of this like struggle to become.
Yes.
So I look at my work, and a lot of times, like by the time I'm done with the painting, I'm like, all right, I'm trying to be a better friend to my paintings. I am trying to be a better friend in my studio, because a lot of them I'm like, okay, so I think it's time we see other people. Been a little too long. We just need to part ways. It's like, let's just call it what it is. So I'm learning to have a little more grace with where I am and where I've been, because there's always that next relationship that I'm like, well, maybe that one will be more fun. Like maybe I could be funny in a painting. Like, what about this?
Funny. I didn't even
vegetables in my paintings.
It's true though, when people in their art, like, as an author, we talk about hearing their voices in our mind, like them having conversations, and we get that down on paper. And when you say that to people who are not authors, they kind of look at you and back away slowly, right? Like it's kind of like, but it's like that. You have this relationship with your art because it is such I think, an internal expression. I mean, external expression of this internal feel or learning or becoming. So even with that though, like that one painting of the girl in the field, I mean, it does feel Mary Cassatt to me, that warmth and the colors and the thickness of the paint and just the feel of it. So there is a feel, I think, that is a thread that runs through what you have and I think paintings do emanate the feel of something or a feel of a style, even if it's, a specific style that you recognize or don't.
Oh, sure.
I love this feel though, that you also allow yourself the journey of this. So this is a question I've always had. I talk about this when we're remodeling, and I say, how do you know when it's done? Like, how do you know you have enough blue? How do you know that the painting is done? Do the
Right.
heavens part, or is it like you just go, yeah, I'm sick of working on this? Like, how do you know?
Yeah, it depends on the day. It depends on the painting. Sometimes it's a divorce. It's a messy divorce. And it's like, all right, I'm like, this is all I can do. And then other times it's just, I'm looking around my studio and I just have stacks of paintings, and most of them are like 90% done. So a lot of times what I do is I'll show my husband, because I won't think it's done, and he'll be like, no, stop. I'm like, okay.
Wonderful.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, everyone, Sam and Frodo, you've always got to have your wingman, right? That person that can give you that ballast. That's phenomenal. And he sounds so incredibly supportive. Do your kids love that you do this? And do they do art at all?
Some of them dabble. It'll be interesting to see if any of them get serious about it or not. Personally, as their mother, I think they're all so gifted. Obviously. No, actually, but oh, I already forgot the question. My kids, my husband's supportive. I'm sorry, I just lost it. It's just
that's totally fine. It is the artist way. I love that you have so much support and that you can feel the joy that you still have in it. Sometimes when we start pursuing something in a more official capacity that's a joy or a passion, we start to lose it because it just becomes such a pragmatic experience. Oh, sure. I wanted to ask you, you're just such an upbeat, happy, sort of the opposite of sometimes you see the artist angst, right?
Yeah.
In your journey, have you had, I always talk about the wilderness that every creative journey has, there's wilderness where you're like, I don't even know if I want to do this anymore. Now, I know we talked about that with individual paintings, but have you had an experience where it really shaped you in your art, that you either had to make that decision, yes, I'm pursuing this, or in an aspect of being an artist that you really struggled with and had to figure your way through?
Oh man, that's a really good question. And I think it's really hard for me to separate like a specific instance, because I get so caught up in thinking about being in a wilderness. I feel like the whole thing is the wilderness, because it's how you're focused on it. Like every next painting could be a disaster. Everything I'm in the middle of, if it's going well, I could be like the next brush stroke away from just, I don't know, going the wrong direction, ruining everything, my whole life, everything. So I could focus. No pressure. Yeah. I've been trying to focus a lot recently on whatever the context of my situation is, it's the content that's important. So if I'm going through a spot where I'm getting rejection after rejection, or I just can't paint anymore. Like, what in the world am I doing? Because I think every artist hits that.
Oh yes, imposter syndrome, the whole thing.
Gosh, yeah, absolutely. I usually take a step back and I just tell myself, this is part of my story. It's good. Everybody's got to have some horrible, difficult trial, even if it's like I grabbed the wrong blue paint, like something totally, it doesn't even matter. Whatever. It's just so much more important, I think, to focus on that the hard things are part of the story. They're part of the journey. They're a requirement to get to that next place where you feel really good. And you just keep going. And yeah, the clouds part and there's sunshine. I am really trying to get to the point where I can make my own sunshine a little bit more readily than I have in the past. So
love that. I love how you said they are a requirement to get to that next place in the journey. I agree. And to feel the joy of when you come through that, even if it's not this grand experience, but it's a moment and you can recognize that and you feel it, and then you move on to the next thing. How have you felt? I think we were just talking before we started about the Latter-day Saint community of artists, and there's some just signature people who are involved in this. How has that been for you in being able to weave in the gospel, or bring in the gospel, or use the gospel in being able to develop and flourish as an artist?
Oh gosh, I can't even tell you how great this community is. It's astounding. They've completely adopted me. I don't live in Utah, but I feel like I am just so welcome with all the people that I've met. And it's such a beautiful thing to be able to struggle alongside with people who We have some just really beautiful things in common. And artists in general, at least the circles that I run in, I'm just so lucky because everybody's so generous with their time and they're just so kind. But there is something very special about meeting these like LDS art heroes, you know, that you've had forever or whatever. And just, oh man, it's such a good community. You got to find your community, you know.
That's
if you don't have
what
one, you got to make it. You got to make one if you can't find one.
I love it. Got to make one if you can't find one. And it sounds to me like you have gone into that saying, how can I help? What can I contribute? And being open to getting over the fangirling thing, but being able to say, okay, I'm here to learn, and I'm also going to contribute whatever I have learned so that that can be a benefit to other people. I think that's really part of being a community in any creative endeavor.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Do you find, like, do you have some kind of a gospel grounding practice or something that you do to get into that ready to paint space? Or what is it that you do to help yourself get ready and then be able to keep showing up for the paintings?
Sure. Okay. I do pray. Maybe I don't remember every time, but at some point, usually during the day, I'm like, probably ought to say a prayer. There are definitely paintings I've prayed my way through, which is good. That's good. It's humbling. I also think that I've started using music kind of to get me going. So I'll have a playlist that is kind of a little bit higher paced at the beginning. That's kind of like you've got this music. I also leave myself like symbols places too, which is one of the things that I got from my mentor, Tina. She's like, just have things places to remind you of things like, you know, that you're powerful or whatever you need to know. So I have things that I can see and it reminds me like to feel confident or whatever. So that's kind of part of my practice too, has been.
That's awesome. Is that in your studio or is it so it's easy to see?
Yeah, it's in my studio. Like this, for example. I usually have this by my easel. It's just a little jar of sand. But when I was, how old was I? Pretty close after high school, I went and I taught English in China for a while. And kind of all by myself, it was like this, I got on the plane and was like, oh my gosh, I don't speak Chinese. So it's fine, details, it's fine. I had like 24 hours to figure out how to say, you know, where's the bathroom? It was great. But at any rate, I was caught in a sandstorm on the Gobi Desert, and it was totally traumatizing. It was just this incredible experience. And it was very much like a powerful testimony builder to me of the Lord coming for me. You told me would cry. I might. Sorry if I get us started. It'll be me. Anyway, it just reminds me that the Lord's here. Darn it. And so I keep it next to me, and it's just something that I can do hard things. I can get through hard things, and that he helps me. So
okay, I'm sorry.
You're gonna get it's all the tears.
No, you're gonna have to tell us what happened in that Gobi Desert. That sounds incredible.
Do you want to hear the story?
I do.
I will tell you the story. So essentially some friends and I, other teachers, and most of the girls I was with were LDS. We were out on the sand dunes and we'd ridden bikes. So we rode a train from our school to get there. We were in a little town or city. I can't even remember. This is the best I can remember everything. We rented bikes. We went out and we were like on this little oasis, and it was fantastic. It was like the perfect day. Like just the weather was gorgeous. And anyway, at some point we were like, we're going to miss our train if we don't go. We got to go. So I remember leaving the dunes and seeing all these vendors that had been there. And it was like kind of afternoon, and they were packing up very quickly. And I thought, well, that's a little odd. Like, it seems like, okay, just noted. So we're on our bikes. And as I remember, it's this long road, and it was tree lined. And every once in a while, this is coming away from the dunes towards this town. Every once in a while, there was a little turnoff, like a driveway. And it didn't seem like a populated area. It seemed like there were a lot of like abandoned, kind of falling apart, like cement huts and buildings. And so as we were leaving, the wind started picking up a little bit. And it picked up enough to the point where we saw a structure that had like a porch. And we went there just to powwow real quick. Let's just decide what we're going to do. And I had the impression, and apparently I wasn't the only one, that we should stay there. But the weather wasn't that bad, and we were going to miss our train. So we're like, you know what? We're good. We'll just pick it up. We'll just go a little faster. Well, we get back on our bikes, and I don't remember how many of us there were there. I'm thinking maybe like 6 of us, but I can't really remember. So we start riding our bikes, and I remember looking behind me, and I see this black wall start at the ground and literally rise into the sky. It was the most unreal thing I've ever seen. Like, I couldn't even believe it. It was, I don't even know how to describe it. It was shocking. So I yelled at the girls behind me, and I saw another turnoff. We were too far away from the last shelter, but I saw another turnoff, and as far as I could see, there were these like tile columns from this like fence. So every once in a while there's like a solid column, and then there's, I think it was iron or something in between. So I was the first in line, and I hightailed it over there, dropped my bike, and the girls were following me. And as soon as I hit the fence and covered my face, it hit us. That wall of sand, it just hit us. And it was otherworldly. It was pitch black. It's pitch black. And you could feel the sand kind of grinding on you. And I remember trying to say something, and there was no sound out of my mouth because it was so loud. It felt like freight trains were just in every direction around you. So all of your senses are completely overwhelmed, and they're basically of no use. And so we're standing there, and again, this was a long time ago, but this is the best way. This is how it is in my head now anyway. So if my friends are like, that's how I remember it, this is how I remember it. So somebody else who was further behind us had seen this like raised garden bed type structure and decided it was a better shelter. So they had seen where all of us were on the fence, connected us, and like felt their way over to this space. So we were now kind of up against a little bit of a half wall thing. And if we yelled, we could hear each other, still couldn't see each other. So we did a roll call, and most of us were there. Okay, so this is part where I might cry again, but it's fine. This is what we do, right? It's fine. So I remember thinking, okay, well, there's nothing else we can do. Like, we don't know what to do. And running in the back of my head too was that I knew this was a sandstorm, but I didn't know anything about sandstorms. All I had seen recently was some headline in Beijing, or outside of it, like 6 people had died in one. But I didn't know, like, were they like really old? Were they asthmatic? Did they get hit by trees? Like, I had no idea how to protect myself other than trying to just, breathe clean enough air through my shirt or whatever I was using. So at any rate, we decided we were going to say prayer. So I said the prayer, yelling basically as loud as I could. And I don't know where the gumption came from after I had been specifically instructed to stay where we were at that first safe location. But wherever it came from, I asked that either the storm stopped or someone would rescue us. And I don't know how either one of those would have been possible. But that was my prayer. Well, then after that, we tried to calm ourselves down and pass some time singing hymns, which I don't know how well that went, probably not very well. And then eventually, and of course, time when you're in a situation like that, like people always ask me, how long were you out there? And I'm like, it could have been 2 minutes. It could have been an hour. I have no idea. Like, I really don't have any idea. I don't think it was that long though, when it turns out that the girls we were missing had been at the very end of our group. And they had, I guess, seen this other little structure, like a hut, a very small building nearby, and they took shelter there. And what I didn't know, this place was all boarded up. There was a very, very elderly Chinese gentleman that was living there in this little building. So he took care of them. And then as soon as they could, they felt their way back to where we were, found us. And I remember the first time I could see anything was when we were like hand in hand and we're headed back over to that area. And I remember seeing just this little catch of light on an edge of something. So anyway, so we ended up back in this hut, and it was like no electricity, no running water, just this water basin, really old like mattress, and I think like some kind of a stove, and just this just sweet old man that, you know, we couldn't really talk to. And anyway, he had us stay there, and as soon as it was safe, he told us it was okay to go. We took a picture with him, and anyway, so it was such a blessing. It was, you know, it was my miracle.
Yeah. I'm thinking about the people around the temple in 3rd Nephi, right? When all this and the destruction, it's just dark, and they all they can hear is the sounds, and people moaning and weeping and all the things. I cannot even imagine the sound of that freight train sound all around, and not being able to get any bearings, not being able to know initially where you are, what's going on, and if everyone is okay. Unreal.
Oh, yeah, it was crazy. We got back on our bikes, and trees were just a mess, and we were sick. We were sick for weeks, but we were good. Oh, and orange, head to toe orange. As soon as we got back into town, we went into, I don't even remember, some building with a bathroom and a mirror, orange. It was crazy. All of it was crazy. All of it was
real. Yeah. I love that you have that bit of sand in that bottle, and reminding you of, in the most unlikely place on some desert in China, that the Lord heard you and saw you, and there was a little old man in a hut that could make sure you guys were safe and sound and okay. Yeah. Unreal.
I think in my life, that's one of the ways that the Lord has shown me that he's there, is through travel disasters. So
did you use any of this in a painting at all? Did you use any of it?
I did not. I have not used that in a painting.
Not yet.
It would be very interesting to have paintings inspired by some of the things that have happened to me, because there's been a few.
I think that would be a great series. Maybe we just
credit you.
Catalyst it right here, the travel disaster series, right?
Yes, I love it. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. The Lord has been a part of your life, and you can understand. I love it. Sweetie, it has been such a joy and such an eye-opener to see the normalcy of using art in your life. And I say that with great respect, that, like you said, when you get over the starstruck thing of saying, this is doable, these principles you can learn, and you can develop your talent, and you don't have to do it like everyone else. You don't have to have a signature style either. You can use art on the daily and just develop and create and be open to the experiences that the Lord wants you to have with it. And I think that is just a huge takeaway from talking with you today. You've just made it so accessible, I think is a great word. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. I've enjoyed it so much.
For people who want to find your art and want to enjoy and revel in it, and just see what other things you have in there, what's the best way for them to reach you?
My website is crystaldespain.com, and it's probably going to be linked, I'm assuming, on the podcast information. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, signing up for my newsletter there is the best way to keep in touch and to see what's going on. I'm also on Instagram, but it's really that newsletter that, if you want to hear more and catch my blog entries and that kind of stuff, that's where to be. So
I love it. I hope that they will connect with you and find out more about the beautiful work that you do. Such a joy. Thank you so much for joining us today. And those of you out there on your artistic creative journey, we hope that you've been inspired by these steps and the miracles, the sandstorm miracle. I'm not going to forget that one. So great. And if you love this interview, as always, go below, rate, review, and subscribe, and enjoy getting them in your inbox. We've been able to interview amazing people, so generous in sharing their life lessons. Benny Oaks Baker, Lisa Valentine Clark, Harold Lund, all on your creative journeys to help you be more fulfilled and progress in your journey. Be called create.